Fulcher, welcome everyone. We'll begin with a little song. Many fine places in this world, with homes where the heart is, haven't you heard? But my heart's here, nearest to feel it, in my island home. It's Ireland, it's Ireland, it's Ireland. Ooh, my craic. All right, so let me put this away and let's get into it. Okay, so if you're looking at the video, you can see I'm sunburnt a little bit. I've just fresh back from Australia. Let's pull up the blinds a little, and there's a bit of an Australian kind of hue to the sky. Actually, it's pretty bright today in Dublin. Um, but yeah, so I was in Australia for like almost a month, catching up. Been a while, 4 years since I was there. And basically, why aren't I in Australia? If anyone cares, of course, I'm running for office in Ireland. And so this podcast is kind of focusing on that more for the time being. I'll throw other things in as they occur, anything interesting. But you know, this is pretty important, like the fate of Ireland. And whatever humble offering I can make to Mother Ireland, I am delighted to offer. And so anyway, I thought it would be relevant. Like, why is this Australian fella, um, Irish as well, for the record, right? Uh, why is he in Australia? I mean, why is he in Ireland? Why isn't he in Australia when, what is it, 70% of young Irish people are apparently considering emigrating? Um, Not so good. I don't like that. That's not nice. That, like, I like Ireland. Ireland needs the Irish. Um, and so, why am I here? I thought that would be relevant, and it's an interesting conversation because I think for people who, it's like the Beatles. Like they said, George Harrison said, like they were really young, really famous, really rich, and very culturally lauded and like significant, and they had everything basically, and they realized it still wasn't enough, and that's when they said like, oh my God, and they turned to spirituality and like you know kind of understanding the true self and how you're not just the little idea you have of yourself in the head, and that actually there's a much deeper, more beautiful, expansive sense of self, very powerful, very pure and precious, which is within all of us, but we kind of overlook it the whole time. Anyway, and so the connection here is that like I've lived in Australia and now I live in Ireland, and my parents were born in Dublin, and then they moved over to Australia in the 80s, like 87, I think. Yeah, 87. And then I was born, 91, so not long after. And there's many beautiful things about Australia, so I can totally understand why the average Irish person would be interested in going there. But I'm going to give you some reasons not to do that and to stay in Ireland. And if you've gone to Australia, why to come home to Ireland. And it's just from my experience, and everyone should do what they think is right. Um, but I'm going to give you a perspective which might be interesting for some people, and even for people if you're not Irish, not Australian, or whatever, but you're, I don't know, you're Honduran or whatever. Um, Shout out to Luis. um, but if you're, or shout out to Israel also. Israel also, you pearl, if you're listening. Um, anyway, not saying you're Honduran Israel, but I'm just like I heard you were listening. So um, anyway, so yeah, hopefully it's interesting. So Australia has sunburnable weather. If you're pale as me, you get a bit fried. But most people like love it, like, oh, it's beautiful, but for me, I love the misty, rainy, cool or cold weather. I find I can focus more, I can concentrate better when it's cold. When it's hot, I get all sluggish and sleepy and I can't think straight. And I'm a technically albino, like ocular albinism, you know. So it's like and my vision, it's a bit affected, uh, but it's also my skin. I get sunburnt pretty easily. I don't really tan. So like my mum and dad, they can get kind of like browner. They can get like most Irish people can kind of tan, but I don't really. That doesn't really work for me. I just get fried, and my body's like a solar panel. Pearly white, just soaking up all the radiation. And so for me, Australia is like my level of comfort is actually reached by like the misty Irish weather. And so it's perfect. My eyes are quite light sensitive, so it's much nicer here. It's much more peaceful. I have less eye strain. I feel like charged up with energy on a day where maybe many people might feel like, oh, it's not as, vibrant or radiant, but they might get that from Australia. So now I know most people aren't listening, aren't don't have ocular albinism. So maybe you're like, well, but then I should go to Australia and get that radiant energy. But that's just one thing. You can go there. But the point is, like, it's possible to love the Irish weather. And our ancestors wrote beautiful, like, love poetry about the nature of Ireland. And unfortunately, a lot of us live in kind of grimy, concrete jungle sort of stuff. Like, around Ireland, unfortunately, one thing I've noticed from Australia to Ireland, in Australia, there's far less, I would say, urban decay and just kind of ugly, weird little streets that, why are there no trees on this street? You know, in Australia, it's much more common, like, oh, there's space for a tree. Let's have some trees there. Um, and where in Ireland, you can find neighborhoods where there's plenty of space, but for some reason, it's all concrete and there's no trees. Our ancestors weren't like that at all. They loved nature and they had nature everywhere. Like what's it, the monks, even a bit later on in the Christian period, still a long time ago, I guess, when that came along, um, they would start a church and they would have like a sacred grove of trees next to it, you know, and up until quite recently in history, Ireland, until the conquest by England, the Ireland had was just covered in forest, the vast majority of it, and that's shrunk to a very small degree now. But the point is, we were like nature worshippers. We were reverent of nature, and that is something that would be great to see more of. Like people really appreciate nature. Irish people go for their hikes and stuff like that, but to see it in the town and in the city and kind of have more of a connection to that. Um, so where was I? Saying, yeah, the charging up on that radiant sunshine in Australia. But yeah, so here I feel like, actually, maybe I lost that point. But hey, whatever. Let's just keep talking about what's good about Ireland, why to live here. Um, and so let's see, but the nature in Ireland, like it's beautiful and lush and green. There's parts of Australia which are like that, but Western Australia, where I'm from, is quite dry. And so I'd always look around and be like, like it's beautiful. Australia's got a lot of good things going for it. And I love Australia. No, no dissing Australia. Much love to Australia. And that'll always be in my heart, and I'll always be Australian. Um, but I'll always be Irish also, and I'll always be a human being. So whatever. Let's don't need to get too philosophical about it. But the nature in Ireland is just so gorgeous. Like when I first came here when I was 12 and I looked around, it blew my brain. Like I couldn't. I was like, and the crazy thing is, I'd always loved that kind of nature, even from a little kid. I was like Irish. Then I came to Ireland. I was like, oh, that's weird. The land of my ancestors. That's like the kind of nature I've always dreamed of. Oh, perfect. Like, maybe that's why you're dreaming of it. I don't know. Um, but and Western Australia is very dry, very kind of yellow. Like in summer, everything goes yellow or brown, like the leaves and on the trees and the grass. And the soil is not the soil in Ireland is dark and black. In Western Australia, it's like grey. Mostly a lot of it's sand. You can't grow veggies in it. You have to put down compost on top of it. You could not grow veggies in it. You know, and even like proper big farms, they grow wheat in most of parts. There's areas where you can grow wheat, and you can have cattle on the land eating the grass or sheep eating the grass, and then you can get the wool. But a lot of it, it's not that fertile. And down south, Margaret River and Denmark and all that, there's like area where you can have big, vineyards and stuff. It's a bit more fertile. But Ireland, that's one thing. Like we are living on incredibly lush, fertile soil, and that is a beautiful gift. Look at a map of the world. Most of the world is not like lush and green, and that is an absolute, precious commodity and just a precious essence and spirit that we are blessed with. Um, and just like the food it produces, the cheese and the butter and the meat, from that soil, and even I guess the wheat, although it's another thing, the Irish, our connection to the land, and that has also been lost a bit. And a lot of potatoes even are like imported, and local agriculture in some ways has kind of become disconnected from the traditional ways. As happens over time, people doing the best they can. Some crazy laws and regulations brought in, or interests pushing things that aren't maybe the wisest. But so okay, so Australia, let's say, okay, what else? Yeah, it's easier to make money. Most people probably thinking, yeah, go to Australia because I can, get ahead. I can make money, so then I can have the things I want and have a dignified life. I can give my kid, I can have a nice house. I can have a proper car. I can give my kids good education and good health care, and go on trips with them and show them things and have experiences. I don't need to be working constantly. I can have, the same amount of money and more free time than if I had to do it in Ireland. And I think in general that is true. I think it's easier to make money in Australia. Um, it's still very expensive in quite a lot of Australia. Like just there is insane. Like I think actually maybe more expensive than Dublin. I might be wrong, but in some ways. Um, but I think in general, probably, yeah, it's like you can go and work on the mines and get like 100 or 200,000, dollars a year or something. Um, and whereas that's not really available in Ireland. And so, if I was just looking for money, then I would be in Australia. That would be my plan. Like, yeah, that's going to be the easiest way to make money. But there's more wealth and more riches and treasure to life than just money, and so money's, obviously I think it's important. And if you have the right attitude, then the more money you have, the better it is. It's a good thing. Good people having more money is a good thing. Bad people having more money is a bad thing. Um, and getting lost and obsessed with money is a bad thing. But it's a noble, worthy thing to try to expand your resources and your little private kingdom so you can flourish with you and yours. But Ireland has this culture and this history going back. We're part of this story which just goes back thousands of years, and it's such a beautiful, story, heartwarming, heartbreaking, and we're part of that story. And we can go off to Australia and start a new story, like my family kind of did, or my parents. And although I have lots of family still in Ireland, you know, blessed with one of my grandmas still with us, and a bunch of cousins, aunts, and uncles, and all that. Um, but you know, the you can go start a new story, and that's beautiful. Like you do you. Whatever you want for life. But I'm trying to say, I think there's a lot more to Ireland that people, as a kind of, I'm half outsider, half insider. So I'm kind of in the middle. I feel like a unique perspective. I'm kind of standing in the doorway between two rooms, and I can tell you what's in both rooms. And Ireland, there's a lot of things in Ireland which are really beautiful and uplifting, which you won't get in Australia. Um, that there's, as an Irish person, there's we can, by becoming healthier ourselves and overcoming our traumas and overcoming depression and anxiety and frustration and addiction and all these demons, and even like nihilism, or like, a lot of the stuff that went on with the church seemed pretty barbaric and weird. Like some dark forces took control of that thing, at some point. And like, and then but then being like, not everything's meaningless, or you just create your own meaning and objectively nothing's real, that doesn't quite seem right either. And I kind of feel like I'm just drinking myself to death, because deep down I feel like nothing matters. And the being able to heal that spiritually, kind of finding a kind of center where you can say, "Oh, actually, I believe in love and the soul, and even the immortality of the soul, I do." And like being able to be a spiritual nature loving, um, loving person, an aware person who's devoted to uplifting one's consciousness to the betterment of self and, lower case s and uppercase s, the great self that includes all of us, as well, through one's own self, bring oneself into balance, which is good for us, you know. So if you really want to be selfish, you should be selfless. That's the best way, and vice versa. There's a balance. You've got to put yourself first to be in balance, and then, But anyway, so by healing ourselves, we heal our family, we heal the community. At least we start resonating that, and other people can pick up on that if they want. If there's people who don't want to heal, then they will not, and they will maybe even attack you for healing yourself. Be like, hey, well, you think you're better than us? What, you're not drinking 5 pints a minute? What's wrong with you? You know, um, but you just got to be like, well, I know, that's cool. You do your thing, I do mine. Oh, if I'm cool with still hanging out and being on the level, but hey, if you can't deal with that, then all right, I guess I'll have to not connect with you. That's fine. If people are not, if people are going to pull you down when you try to move upwards in a healthy way, then you got to cut them loose. And otherwise you're not helping them either. But there's always a chance they might get inspired, and go, oh, I'm going to follow you, and end up anyway. But this is just one thing, being part of the story of Ireland. I'm inspired to be part of the story, and to whatever extent I can, healing Ireland, which I've gotten everything from Ireland. Well, I mean, I've gotten everything from God or from the universe, whatever word tickles your buttons better. Same thing. The all-encompassing infinite consciousness of life, or God. Um, but I mean, it's come through Ireland, like, and my ancestors who fought, the survivors of the survivors of the survivors. That's who we're all descended from in the world. 99.9% of all species are extinct, and I think probably the same for humans. Within each species, and it's the minority who are doing whatever is aligned with evolution and is adaptive to local conditions, which are constantly changing, continues and then expands and kind of spreads through the gene pool and in waves of like obliteration and kind of colonization or whatever. And so anyway, we are descended from those Irish souls, who, immortal souls, but incarnated in Ireland as Irish people, and understanding life through that cultural lens and that historical lens, and being part of that world, and struggling with the struggles that have come to our people and our island, and sharing those triumphs and revering the stories of the past, of the heroes of old. And was it the tell me the stories of long ago, and the Black Queen, no, when the kings and queens danced in the realm of the Black Rose. Beautiful. Oof, tingles. Anyway, that's Roisin Dove, the Black Rose, um, Thin Lizzy song, so good. Actually, I believe it's got ancient Irish melodies in it. Like when the instrumental break, I believe that's like old Irish tunes. Anyway, yeah. So we have the opportunity here to be part of that story, and by going, okay, yeah, it is more expensive to live here, and yeah, there is a bunch of mayhem, and I assure you, there's more mayhem in Ireland than in Australia. Like, kind of on the psychic level. There's just weird things that happen in Ireland. There's alarms go off and no one fixes them. And then the same alarm goes off like 2 weeks later and 2 weeks after that. And it's like, who is fixing these things? And how are they not getting put out of business? Like when they're not fixing things right, or like traffic lights that just stay red for like forever and everyone's red. And it's like, what's going on? No one's moving. Except, the locals who are like, oh yeah, we'll just cross the road because, it's going to be red for the next 5 minutes. And or you contact this is some of this is shared internationally, but being like, you contact the government about something and it's like no reply, or just emails don't get followed up on, or things are very slow. Like, I know people who work in certain bureaucracies, and they say, yeah, people are just like, hey, slow down, hey, what are you doing, like, why you work, hey, just check your email. He's like, well, I've done all my work, what do I do now? Like, whoa, easy. And it's like, well, that's our taxpayer dollars. You telling us it's probably literally, we could probably double the efficiency of the civil service, just like if they were going it to full gear, you know. If you're like, yeah, I don't know how you do that, but anyway, um, okay, you know, and things where it's like, just things that don't seem to make sense and things don't get fixed, or, um, and I think part of that, you know, in Australia, things are a bit more organized. Usually, there's a kind of certain thing of like, it's almost like shameful to sink beneath a certain level of organization of like, oh, you got to kind of have your stuff together. Come on, mate, you know, pull it together. Whereas in Ireland, I think sometimes people have an attitude of like, oh, sure, look, it'd be grand, and who cares anyway? Ah, whatever, you know, haha. You know, I'm resisting the man, and maybe I have a theory. I don't know if this is true, but that evolved among people who were like, a lot of the population were like, okay, look, these Brits are mad, you know, we got to just get along with them, and you know, not like, you know, all my, you know, kin just got murdered because they rose up in rebellion, and um I sympathize with that, but I'm just gonna, you know, live my life and try to not, you know, get my head blown off. um and so they're like, a lot of them would just go about their lives, but then there's a bunch of people participating in the system, and you know, say administration and blah blah blah, who maybe, you know, weren't that, they weren't that happy with the imperialism going on, but they just didn't want to resist it so openly, and maybe there's sort of an underground resistance of being like, oh yeah, you know, well, I'm not really going to work my butt off to help them, am I? Because you know, um, and I don't know, maybe that's it. Maybe that's a stretch. Don't know. Also, I think just in general, trauma does weird things to people. And look, we got genocided, but genocide by omission. But you know, come on, the British Prime Minister during the famine was like, maybe this is a gift from God. All the people mostly affected by the lack of food are Irish speakers and politically active Irish people who are resisting our attempts to continue this centuries old colonial project of obliterating their culture. Well, so the potato blight, you know, ruined the potato crop, and oh, we, by the way, we kicked them all off the land a few generations earlier. So actually, the land, Ireland is producing plenty of food, but we're selling it abroad and using it, and in many cases, people are getting killed for, oh, you went and got oysters from the beach. That's the, you know, the Queen's Beach. You can't do that, you know, or the river or whatever. It's like, well, no one was using it, and I'm Irish. Can I just? I'm starving. No, and you know, the produce of the land was owned by these people who, you know, their ancestors had just violently kicked off the locals. Um, and so they, instead of being like, all right, we'll make an exception, you know, we better share this food so people don't die. And anyway, we kind of kicked them off the land only, you know, a few generations back. Um, and and so yeah, you know, being like, there's actually plenty of food, but they made that choice to, you know, kind of obliterate the resistant core of a nation. And so, is that not genocide? Now, I don't think any grievance against British people now is useful. Even like the military or like the deep state, you know, even like Liz Truss or whatever has said, you know, of course there's like a deep state every country has to deal with, and I got tricked by my deep state, you know, they got rid of me or whatever. Something to that effect, you know, former Prime Minister of Britain, very brief, and then basically it seemed like she wanted to shrink the government, like legit, and they were like, don't think so. um, anyway, so I, you know, even or the royal family, I think, look, things have been done in the past, and there's a lot of things I think are pretty shady. But you know, hey, like, let's got to come from a higher perspective. You can't solve a problem at the same level that created it. And I think the ancient Irish druids, or like, you know, the Irish mystics and monks and whatever, and the wise poets and, you know, etc. of the past, if what they were, you know, plopped into this situation and kind of educated on the current facts, their advice from their point of consciousness would be like, well, you know, we're all branches on the tree of life. Don't, you know, you need to understand we're all one. And you can't have a healthy, powerful response if you're just getting lost in, you know, um, you know, and you gotta kind of, you know, or people being like, get them out, get them out. And it's like talking about mass immigration and people being flooded illegally into Ireland, which is a travesty. It's crazy. You know, legal immigration, of course, has certain benefits so long as it's not excessive in quantity. But like what's happening now is just insane and terrible. But that thing like, get them out, get them out. I can totally understand. There's, it's correct in a way. Like it's coming from, in one sense, it's a healthy response because a lot of people are just, whatever, sure, look, just let it be, doesn't matter, and but then that's unhealthy. You need to fight. Sometimes you need to get angry. What's that thing from Network or whatever, that movie? It's like, damn it, you got to get mad. And the thing is, sometimes people are pushing against a boundary and you need to wake up and you need to push back. And you can do that from a higher perspective where you've no anger, or maybe you have anger, but temporarily, but no like grievance or no hatred. Like, emotions can come up and you let it flow, let it go, you know. But sometimes I think people have a block where, and I think Irish people come from the colonial thing. It's like anyone who got mad, bad idea, people lose control, they get angry at the empire, and then you get killed or you get thrown off the land. Or the other thing was we weren't allowed to own the land. So then, of course, we were impoverished and forced onto the potato, kind of subsistence lifestyle, and then obliterated by the famine. So again, caused by colonialism. Um, anyway, but like you got to push back and you got to wait. If it takes you getting angry, then do get angry, but the goal is, higher consciousness, a peaceful perspective, but being able to understand, this is not personal and we don't need to hate anyone. This is a universal process of awakening and a conflict, and, the awakening of a consciousness, and the bringing of peace. And so what I think, what I'm trying to do, I've many ideas about, and I think I have very good ideas, and well-informed ideas. I'm sure I'm not right about everything, but I think if you have a conversation with me, ask me a question, there's a very good chance I'll have a good answer for you. And not because I'm some genius or something, I'm not, but it's just I'm very curious, very open-minded, and I'm basically obsessed with the way, the kind of general universal questions of like life at large. Like how does the universe work? That's very interesting to me. And so what is and what should be. Anyway, so uh, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. So anyway, where were we? Saying, uh, yeah, what I'm trying to do is, I think one of these ideas, but my overarching thing is Gaelic Awakening is my political party, right? And so it's about awakening, which is a spiritual, all-encompassing, infinite thing. And then there's Gaelic, which is a separate, specific, worldly, embodied, rooted down thing. So it's kind of the marriage of heaven and earth, And I think we require that balance. We need, you know, so, there's a bunch of, I haven't, I've met some of these people, but there's a lot of, cool seeming Irish. I get the impression there's a bunch of Irish people who are kind of getting, into mysticism, maybe taking some plant medicines and healing themselves and raising their consciousness and kind of raising the consciousness of the island and the collective consciousness that is Éire. Um, and that's beautiful, and raising the goddess there. And I'm doing that to the extent that I can, And I do in, connect with Ireland as a being. Like I feel like, and I could be wrong. I understand that, but you could be wrong too if you think that's stupid. Both of us could be wrong. But you have your intuition, and you're a fool if you don't follow your intuition just because other people have different intuitions. So my intuition, my feeling is like Ireland is an intelligent entity, and Mother Ireland is like, it's like the cells within my body are functional and independent, but then I here as like the governing consciousness, I kind of can control them. I can do intermittent fasting and I'll blast a bunch of the weak ones to smithereens and they will get replaced by healthier cells. I can, eat junk food or very healthy food and it'll affect my cells. So in the same way, I feel like Ireland is this collective consciousness at a higher level, and that, you know, she is my mother, and I love her, and I think it's not just I love Ireland. I think Ireland loves me, and if you love, and Ireland loves you, if you're an Irish child, an Irish person. Um, anyway, so I think there is this mystical kind of subculture growing, and it's very good in Ireland. But I'm not sure. I'd be very curious to hear or find out how politically active they are, or what their political feelings are, because I would guess quite a few people would be where I used to be until fairly recently, which is like, oh, the whole system's pretty messy and murky, and actually just focus on your own world, build your own, life and your own destiny, and don't get tricked into resisting this system which has its own momentum and, is kind of mass unconsciousness at work. Just do your own thing and, don't feed the flames of that. Um, but I think you can only do that I think that's worked for a long time and that's been very beneficial around the world. People, musicians, artists, philosophers, whatever, business people, entrepreneurs, doing our own thing, developing these healthy systems and just ignoring these big systems of kind of, lower consciousness. But I think these bigger systems have gotten to the point where they have noticed that the smaller systems are thriving and growing, and that kind of interferes with their plans. And so I think actually, whether you like it or not, you're going to have to get involved in the political situation because otherwise these higher vibrational cultures will be attacked. And that's happened throughout history. Just because you're high consciousness does not mean you're not going to get killed by some tyrant. That happened many, many, many times. Um, and so, and look, Ireland, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm just saying, I think these overall forces, I want to see a connection between spirituality and politics. Okay, I should have said that 10 minutes ago, but hey, I'm not perfect. I'm doing my best. I'm here on live for you. Evolving in real time or real timelessness, as the case may be. Um, and I think I want to see I think when the spiritually aware or awakening, like I'm not awakened, I'm not a Buddha, right? Um, uh, Deep down, I am pure consciousness and I'm perfect already. We all are, but I'm in actual like day-to-day living, moment-to-moment living, like I'm not like some awakened being, I'm awakening. I'm on the road of becoming aware of my mind and my biases and my, conditioning and just momentum going on autopilot and whatever. But I think the group of Irish people who are awakening, if we can get this group kind of connected to express their wisdom into politics, the political system, and kind of using this field of higher awareness to kind of interrogate and explore the questions of what does a healthy Irish political system look like, and how can we participate and actually try to transform it for the better of all. Um, so I think there's people who are politically active, but they're lacking that spiritual grounding, and there's people who are spiritually active, but maybe lacking the political grounding. And I think Gaelic awakening, we need to bring this together, and that's one of these little plot twists the universe keeps for us is like, actually, I think we're coming to a point where the new Earth that Eckhart Tolle talks about, for example. I think it's like don't participate. He says don't participate in the unconsciousness. So be very careful about starting some grand movement. Sound familiar? And resisting what is and kind of creating an us against them mentality and conflict. And so I'm very wary with what I'm doing to not create this us against them thing, and to be able to come from a point of oneness. Um, but I think there is this beautiful challenge, which I think is necessary. I think this is the path that we've come to now, is that to have that spirituality in the pure sense, not just of like, yeah, I love, I feel connected to nature and, or like I believe in energy or something. No, but like in a very practical sense, spirituality meaning you know, or you are becoming aware um, of and expressing and experiencing the oneness of life, which is your true nature. You are one with all life. You could call that consciousness. You could call it the universe. Call it silence. Call it peace. Call it oneness, stillness, whatever. It's like that's spirituality is actually basically higher philosophy or higher physics. Um, it's just or higher science. It is just pure knowledge of who you are and who everyone else is and who the universe is. And so anyway, getting us all politically active. I think that's so tying it back to why amn't I in Australia? um, is that I love Amn't, beautiful. Um, is that I feel there's this beautiful mission that the whole world needs to go on, of like the wiser people who are more spiritually aware, I think we need a kind of intervention with the rogue political classes who are like kind of all, there's nefarious agents with their own self-interests or these grand schemes or whatever. You have people who are just ideologues and they really think they're helping everyone, but they're just, really absorbed in these narrow thought um, forms, these kind of narratives. Then you have other people who are just incompetent. They just don't quite know, well, making mistakes. I guess if they're making too many mistakes for their job, their position, then they're incompetent. But sometimes we make mistakes. So there's just mistake or incompetence. Um, and then people who know what's going on, but they don't want to, they're afraid, or even they're not afraid, but they're just making a decision, like a calculation, like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna rock the boat, whatever. There's all these reasons, these different motivations, but the political system we've got is pretty nasty and not at all in the interests of Ireland. Like Ireland is getting destroyed. Like, the island is fine, right? I mean, there's problems with the ecological health as well, um, but I mean, the culture that has lived here is under extreme pressure, and it's very sad, and it's very scary. It's very frustrating, um, because Ireland has so much beauty, and we've been through so much, and this can't be the last chapter, Um, that like, oh, okay, yeah, and then all these beautiful people, they're God's children too, but people from like Africa or Asia or the Middle East or whatever, um, South America, and again, I love people from all these places. I love everyone, we're all branches on the same tree, right? But they have different culture, different way of seeing things, different stories, different beliefs about how people should live and how society should operate, what's allowed, what's not allowed. Look at the kind of mass censorship that was just happening in Brussels. People trying to just discuss some ideas, conservative political group, and they're being like attacked and like censored, and the local mayor trying to shut down the the event and all this with the police, or kind of So, but the point is, you know, for all these people from all over the world to come into Ireland and then, yeah, like against the wishes of the local people who are like, yeah, have been very, Irish people are famously hospitable and, Chéad Míle Fáilte, like 100,000 welcomes. And it's quite a slap in the face that the government, not these people from all around the world, it's not their fault. They're taking the best opportunity they can. Everyone would do that. That makes sense. The people at fault are the Irish government, who are probably bowing to pressure from Brussels, um, and Davos, WEF, and all whatever, globalist power players, it seems, because they're not definitely not following the interests of the Irish people or even their own self-interest in getting re-elected. It seems like something else is pushing them along, and setting the boundaries of their Overton window. It's not the public sympathy; it's someone else's sympathies and beliefs, it seems. Um, but such a slap in the face for these Irish people who we were conquered and plantationed, but the British bringing in Scots and wherever people from all through Britain to kind of and kicking the locals off the land, and then now that has been woven into our fabric of Ireland, and so they are just as Irish as anyone, like the descendants of the Scots, they're Irish, they've been in Ireland, and anyway, the Scots were an Irish. If you go back long enough, they were settled by Irish people, but so it just went back and forth really in a bit of a messy fashion. But such a slap in the face to have this history, and then finally we kind of to some extent get our own freedom, and then not too long down the line, there's all this immigration starts, and the Irish people are welcoming the people in by and large. Oh yeah, come in. You're from Africa, great, wonderful. What's your name? Oh, cool. A cup of tea. Are you from China? Oh, great. Are you from Bolivia? Whatever. Doesn't matter. We're all cool. But then it starts getting to such crazy levels of really, really high levels where it's maybe too fast for the local culture to be able to adapt. Because if you have one person entering a party of 20 people, that one person, even if they have a totally different idea of what a good party is, they will fall into line with what most people are doing. But if that person can come, 5 minutes later, their friend rocks up and there's two of them, they'll be slightly more comfortable acting in their normal ways, whether or not the local people who own the house want that kind of a party. And then if three of them come, it just keeps getting on. And we're at the point where if you have let's say, what would it be? A party of so 22% foreign born, I guess, right? So, if you have a party of 100 people, now 22 of them are, so let's say 50 people, 11 of them are now not from the actual property, if we want to put it this way. They're, you know, new arrivals, right? And maybe they've been here for a long time in some cases, like could be 20 years. Um, but, that build up, you can have people where they're comfortable, like, oh, well, let's just keep going with the momentum, thousands of years of momentum of our culture, of which we love. Of course, everyone loves their own culture, almost everyone. Um, and so basically, Irish people going away, this is too much too soon. This it can't be integrated that fast. And anyway, there's all these other problems: not enough hospital beds, not enough, properties to be able to get what a home is like seven times more. No, I think 40 times more expensive than it was in 1970. 43 times, I think. And real wages have gone up by like 3% or something. House prices up 43 times, like 4,000%, something insane. Anyway, there's all these difficulties like, overcrowded schoolrooms, overcrowded prisons. Um, uh, there's many pressures, where more people puts pressure on that system. So apart from the whole cultural thing and identity thing of, well, this is our home and we want to be able to live here in an Irish way. And if you bring in too many people too quickly, naturally they're not going to do because it's uncomfortable to change your ways. So if Irish people go to Australia, okay, you're the minority, you have to just fit in with the Australian way. Or if Turkish people move to Greece, they have to kind of fit in with the Greek way. And that can be difficult. And naturally, all creatures try to go the path of least resistance and go with what they're doing already. It's hard to, change your ways. And so, yeah, so I think it's such a slap in the face that the political class are doing this to Ireland because we were, have been embracing these people for so long. And what suddenly we've become racist and right wing? What are you talking about? This makes no sense. Um, anyway, so it's a little tangent, but you know, Ireland is in a situation where uh, the culture is at risk of being, if you care about diversity, you know, then and you enjoy having a lush, beautiful garden full of many different flowers, like the flowers of Bolivia, the flowers of Venezuela, the flowers of Canada, flowers of South Africa, flowers of Nigeria, whatever. I love that. I love the diversity. And if it all merges together eventually, yeah, cool, whatever, fine. That's the way of life. That's no problem at all. But I think naturally we all love where we come from and our ways, and we don't want to see it disappear. We don't want to see humanity go extinct. We don't want to see our countries get destroyed. We don't want to see our family lines end. We want to see it continue to grow and the story to continue. And I think we have to accept the possibility that Ireland, many places, the whole world, with all this flirtation with nuclear war. But let's say Ireland, that Ireland could end. You need to make peace with that possibility, although it's like an awful, terrifying possibility, that to some significant extent, the culture could get completely kind of overtaken where, basically things just change and this happened throughout history. And again, individual people, it's not necessarily their fault if they're most of them are good people, abiding by the laws and all that. Um, but it's just the our representatives in government, they're not reflecting our will in kind of saying, hey, that's enough people at the party for now. Thank you for your interest, but no, this is our house, and you're not welcome at this party. It's not doesn't mean we hate you, just means we're not letting you through our doorway. Is that the same thing? Let me through your door, or else you're a racist. Like, I don't think that logically follows, my good fellow. So, and look, there's many forces, and at work. But Ireland, we have a lot of work to do, and we need to rally around, and we need to get to work. And so, there's a lot of pressures. And so, if you go off to, to Australia, like I feel called to be here to heal myself, and I could do that anywhere in the world, and to evolve myself and evolve life and give to life, create and uplift the universe, repay the beautiful gift of life that I have been given. Um, and so I feel called to do this, and I hope you are called to do it. And it's a beautiful thing to realize one thing, you know, where Jordan Peterson's very on point, Jordan Peterson, the psychologist, um, is that responsibility is a very beautiful thing, and you get a lot of meaning from responsibility, the voluntary adoption of responsibility. And so I'm doing that. And but in Ireland, it's just a beautiful, you know, kind of icing on the cake thing that I get to do it in a way that which will make my ancestors smile and repay the debt of gratitude that I owe them. And also this beautiful story of which we are all a part, to be able to play this role in healing it. And you know, people from abroad, they can come here and they can heal Ireland also, but it won't be exactly the same as native Irish people doing that, you know. And this everyone's got programming, cultural programming, and the native Irish, we it's our story, and others can join in the story. If they're here long enough, they will start to resonate with our ways. Maybe always they kind of thought in a similar way. Maybe that's what's brought them here, and so over time they can become Irish. You know, they can marry into the population, and you know they can be whatever immersed in the culture. And that can happen, and that has happened throughout the centuries. Um, but it's and this is a journey where the Irish, we have this mission, and all countries have their own mission to find this awakening, the universal awakening of humanity, paired with um, nationalism in a strange way. Um, so I think due to the nature of the way the world is, we need freedom, we need liberty in order for consciousness and justice and love to flourish. And these big power players are trying to consolidate power around the world. And so they're trying to fight the uplifting of consciousness, but that's going to doom the planet. We need this uplifting, this transformation of human consciousness, the new era of love, the age of Aquarius, if you will. We need to bring in this consciousness because our technologies have gotten to such a point where we can just destroy ourselves if we do not wake up. And so we have this opportunity to wake up, and it's I believe like a duty. And so I feel like, in a very strange way, nationalism, national sovereignty, the tribal impulse of like my people, you know, this is a very powerful rallying point, which just totally outstrips anything else. Like, oh, I am European. Irish, I'm Irish. I'm European. Yeah, okay, both, but I'm Irish. Whoa, that's powerful. Or if someone's like, oh, I'm Dutch. I'm not just European, I'm Dutch, or I'm Italian. Although Italy, maybe they've got like a million different groups. They might not resonate too much with Italy. It might resonate with, oh, I'm, Genoan or whatever, or Genovan. I don't know. Um, but so I think this is a way where we can rally public attention and presence, and kind of gathering the forces of humanity to put up kind of like a force field of liberty to prevent these dark kind of unconscious momentums from crushing us all around the world. So it'll be a decentralized process, and I think through the nations of the world is a very natural, organic way, very primal way, where we kind of marry the primal animalistic power of the human with the aspirations of the soul and consciousness. So Gaelic awakening in our case in Ireland. So I want to participate in that story, and so to get to the crux of it, like I think if all the young Irish people just go off to Australia, then we can't do this in Ireland. We can't revive our culture and restore our nation and create a beautiful, more beautiful version. But the thing is, I am supremely confident that if we focus and we gather and we resonate with, love, we develop our spiritual potential, but also our political potential, and these, all 7 potentials. Look at my website, gaelicawakening.ie. It's all listed there. Principles of Purpose is the document which talks about it in particular. Or I just did an episode on it. But the deeper movement, I have this political party and I'm standing as a candidate, but then there's a deeper movement, which is Gaelic Awakening, as these 7 potentials of Ireland. And it would apply for any culture, but this is our culture. And so I'm supremely confident if we work towards realizing our spiritual and our political potential, we can totally transform Ireland into who it really is. Like, a beautiful woman who, has fallen in with a bad crowd, and she's just like, taken heroin and just looks like, death, like looks like a zombie, and has given up hope on life or whatever, and is not taking care of herself, blah blah, blah. Somehow has a spiritual awakening, cleans herself up, you know, and then you see her like a year later, and you look at like, whoa, whoa, oh my God, you're like a goddess. You look like a completely different person. You look like the same person actually, but you look like this is the shining sun which was obscured by Irish clouds. um, and so I think Ireland has this beautiful potential which shines out at us all the time, but we Ireland can be so much more, and not like a different thing like, oh, let's totally change Ireland, but no, release the potential of who Ireland really is all along, and who Ireland has been at many times throughout history. Like, I'm fascinated by our history, and there've been many times throughout Irish history where we were, the an extremely enlightened and advanced culture, much more advanced than Britain or other cultures around us. We were the land of saints and scholars, um, and not, for good reason. And going way back, you know, um, some historians believe, there's very ancient roots to that kind of wisdom. Anyway, so I have this beautiful dream about Ireland, and about the world in general, and Europe and the West, including Australia, but the like we have this opportunity to stay here and to go, look, yeah, it is more difficult in Ireland than if I go to Australia. But actually, it's not just about me, it's also about my mother. My mother is Ireland, and I am here to help my mother, and I will stand by her. And my family. And think about it, you leave, the people you leave behind, there's some guy from Kilkenny who's talking to me, I think on Paddy's Day of 2 years ago or something. He's saying like, oh man, um, like I love Ireland, but like, half of my mates have left, like 20 people he knows or something have all gone to Australia. And, you know, what does that do to us? What does that do to Ireland? And um, so I think here's the thing. Uh, if we can endure a few years of struggle, but struggle with a very meaningful purpose to it, then that's very different to struggling because you're forced to and there's no purpose to it, like 9 to 5 in a cubicle, hating your life. Like, working hard for something you believe in is the most beautiful feeling there is, and or it's very high up there. And so we have this opportunity to say, okay, we are not going to go to Australia. We are going to talk to our pals and say, hey, everyone, have you heard this mad guy, talking on the internet? No. Or whoever talks to you and spreads the message, and just say like, hey, here, someone was saying, what do you think about this? Saying that kind of like, we owe it to Ireland, and that we should heal Ireland and stay here and reset the political system. Stay here, get spiritually and politically active, and fix things. Take care of it. Take back our power. Take back our vigor and the strength of our ancestors, and not be meek. Meek has a good way to it as well, but not just be meek and spineless and just like, or hopeless and just say, ah, well, so be it. But to go, no, no, not good enough. We're not doing that. We're just going to take back our country. Thank you. Um, and the ironic thing is, if we can do this, I think, say, we're devoted to this. Who knows how long this will take? But I feel like within a few short years, we will be able to get to the point where Ireland is, already like going the opposite direction of things getting easier and easier and easier. And then within our lifetimes, it will be an Irish Australia, an Australian Ireland, all the opportunities which are causing Irish people to flock to Australia, they will be in Ireland. And anyway, it's your home. It's the place. Most Irish people don't want to leave. It's just, oh, I wish Ireland, wasn't so messed up and we could stay here. But hey, you know, I'm not going to waste my life hanging around here. I'm going to go explore and create something beautiful for myself. We can create that in Ireland, and it's going to be even more beautiful than if you did it in Australia. And all it requires is that we kind of marshal our forces, and we kind of um, awaken ourselves and awaken Ireland. And we can be the little cells in the little nerve cells in, uh, the brain of Éire, which are kind of sending the right messages and, connecting into neural pathways which allow the island to function and to wake up and to reset things in a healthy, beautiful manner. So we can see Ireland flourish like it hasn't in God only knows how long, like, and so I believe a lot of this is about waking up spiritually, so it's get outside of your mind, get into your body, wake up to the now. Read The Power of Now. I highly recommend. And just in general, if you want it, if there's a will, there's a way. You will quickly figure out what resonates with you, whether it's Yogananda, Autobiography of a Yogi, or if it's like the Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz, or Adyashanti, or Muji, or Gangaji, or whoever it is, Rupert Spira, there's all these different teachers of, spirituality. That, and then politically, basically, it comes down to freedom and liberty. And, uh, if you list all the big problems that you have personally and all the big problems that our country has, and if you do that going back into the past as well, you will notice a very funny similarity among 90% of our serious problems, which is that they all come from the government. Like 90% of our problems that all, oh, the government changed this rule, local council did this thing, so then, oh, the kids can't sell lemonade anymore. Or, oh, there's this thing, but then, they couldn't get planning permission, so then they had to shut down the cafe, and then, or, this thing, these people, they died from an overdose because, the MDMA wasn't pure and they didn't know. It's like, oh, well, if that was like, and this one's a bit spicy. Some people might not agree with this, but I think, legalize drugs and control them just like we do with alcohol and tobacco, which also kill people. And many drugs like marijuana doesn't kill people. But it can have bad effects if you're too young or if you're not mentally grounded enough. But like alcohol has bad effects too, and, life is full of risks and we need to navigate them wisely. You can't be like, oh, forks can kill people if you put it in their eye. No forks. No, okay, we just need to use it wisely and be culturally mature enough. So, actually, there's very compelling arguments for why, if you regulated, drugs like MDMA, like the UK head of the drugs thing, the drug czar or whatever, the a bureaucrat overseeing drug policy in the UK, like what, a decade ago or something, was fired because he said, well, MDMA is safer than horse riding. Like, actually, it's not like if you regulate it properly, you know what's in it and you can check if people are putting bad stuff in it, and so it's safer. Um, anyway, so but again, you don't need to agree with all my policies to. If you think that I'm coming from a place of honesty and that I'm articulating things somewhat usefully, then I think you want to expand my reach and my voice, and so please share this, talk to people about it, help expand, the reach of myself, Jamie McGlue, and Gaelic Awakening, and just these sorts of ideas, um, and but yeah, the point is that so many things come back to government. So the basic thing we need to do is kind of shrink the power of the state, and every little inch we take away from the government, we are returning to the common man and woman in the street. So, individual freedom at the expense of government, power. Um, and look, the government's still going to be there. We're not going to abolish the government overnight or something. And maybe eventually, 100 years from now, we'll be spiritually advanced enough to just have, like, no government. When we all, well, yeah, we're all the same person, no big deal. Maybe not even, but definitely no time soon at all. I think what we need is to understand that almost all of our problems come from the government getting too involved in our lives, especially in the economy, but just in general in our lives, and that by rolling back the power of the state, which we can do, no big deal. We just need to organize, become educated, become aware, organize, get together and say, hey, government, 15% of the country is very organized and talking about shrinking the power of the state. And now all the political parties know it, and all the other political parties and candidates have to debate these people and respond to them, and they don't know what to say. How do you can't just ignore them. It's 15% of the public. They're everywhere, then okay, you try to find some balance slightly in line with them, and it starts to grow. And we can definitely do this, and we will do it, I believe. I'm very confident we are going to do this, but it just takes us um, combining spirituality and politics, having the mindset that of intellectual openness and devotion to truth, where you can start to figure out the nature of things, and also start to advocate and spread them without seeming like a racist or seeming like some crazy person. Um, and some people are always going to think you're crazy. Crazy people think sane people are crazy. Like some heroin addict or whatever. Nothing. Look, we're all human. No, no big deal. I don't mean to pick on heroin addicts, but um, some heroin addicts probably like, ah, oh, these normies are so stupid. Like, what are they doing? Why aren't they just taking heroin all day like me? Huh? A lot of them probably think that way. So, but to be able to have the consciousness, the awareness, to be able to understand these principles and how they apply to policy, and then be able to articulate that to people in a way that resonates, where a large percentage of them go, yeah, no, you're right. I'm going to think more about that. And so this is the invitation for us. I extend it to you, a Chorja, Beishe gehintig, maar féidir lin é a dhéanamh le chéile. It'd be beautiful if we can do this together. Um, and yeah, so okay, what else here? So why aren't I in Australia? So what else is there? Um, yeah, so I think that's the basic thing for me, right? Like I love the nature, I love the language. I'm learning Irish, Um, still very basic at this point, but I use it every day. I use it with my daughter. She's not speaking yet, just a tiny bit, but she'll be learning and I'll be learning. We'll be learning together. Um, my goal is to stay at least 2 steps ahead of her, and ideally much more, so I can really help her and communicate. But I love the language. I love the nature. I love the weather. It's nice and cool, and I can focus, and you can sleep really easy when it's like. That's another thing. If you go to Australia, sleeping in summer is going to be a bitch. It's going to be very difficult because it's like really hot and you get sticky, and then you have to turn your pillow over. That's how desperate you get to kind of keep it cool so you can sleep. And then you're like, oh, I want to be comfy, but I'm too hot, so I need to take off the blanket. But then now I'm not comfy anymore. I'm the right temperature, but now I'm feeling this. I'm not quite cuddled up enough. Okay, I'll cuddle up with my beautiful partner, and then you're like, oh my god, I'm sweating all over them like a pig. This is shameful. Carry on. All right, fine, never mind. You turn on the air conditioning, and then now it's making a noise, and I'm trying to sleep, but I just hear the whir of the air conditioner, and Meanwhile in Ireland, just freezing your freezing your balls off, and just fall asleep. Um, so, but yeah, so nature, weather, um, just for a concise list: language, nature, weather, the history, the architecture, all the beautiful old buildings, like the Irish cottagey kind of feel, but also the old beautiful kind of stone buildings and churches. It's gorgeous, and when you see it, it puts you in a certain vibrational state. When you see an ugly, modern building or whatever, some of them are nice, but a lot of them are ugly, and I feel disconnected from higher consciousness. It's like this weird mind stuff of like, look how fancy and weird we can be, and it's like, yeah, well, what about just geometry and symmetry and proportion and sacred geometry? Um, but which is pleasing to the eye, like the golden ratio. We know people are attracted to people whose faces are in alignment with that, the golden ratio, and that traditionally architecture was based upon that, and we still resonate. People come from all over the world to Europe to see this architecture, like, oh wow. And meanwhile in Europe, there's all these people who are like, yeah, okay, now what kind of weird, crazy stuff can we make? And anyway, what else? And last but not least, okay, well, the music. Oh my God, the music is so beautiful, and it's so amazing that you can go to a pub and people are just playing in the pub, and often they're not even official. Like it's like me. Half the time, me and my friends are just in the pub playing music. People are like, oh yeah, you lads play here all the time. Like, oh no, we're just drinking. Just having a pint. Have the guitars with us. Just if we're not allowed to play in the pub, okay, all right, no worries. Put it down and we'll play outside or whatever. Um, and the and the history, story, and last but not least, the people. Ireland, like just the way of being of the people. Um, there's just such a vast number of people who are just I just love the way of the people, like just very humble, very funny, very, kind of quick-witted, um, kind of very social, very like love connecting with people. Um, some, there's the wild kind of really bad, how are you? Really, oh yeah, good man yourself, you know, that kind of whatever. I'm sure that's a terrible impersonation, Sorry about that. Toblerone Arum. But, um, but I just love the accents. I love putting them on, But so, those people, if there's like, oh, some empire, in theory, some empire tries to take over Ireland, those people are the people who you're going to be thanking as they walk past with a rifle, going to defend the country. There's a wild, powerful energy, and if it can be guided through higher consciousness to like a healthy direction, it's a wonderful asset. The power of, like, say, kind of the lower, like more working class Irish, who kind of have that spine, and you can see it in their eyes, like a real energy and a power, um, and you have that throughout the classes of Ireland. But I'd say there's a very high proportion of them in that class. Maybe life's harder; you have to be stronger. But and then in the kind of more middle class thing or whatever, or upper classes, you would have this kind of more this beautiful decency people have, like this desire to be decent, and to be, there's a decorum and a kind of gracefulness in the social relations, And again, that can be throughout. There can be the lower class also, Um, but yeah, like it's just gorgeous, the people, And so you go to Australia, you're not going to have these people all around you. You're not going to walk down the street and people are making jokes at each other, or talking to strangers in the pub. It's kind of more like in a kind of, I feel like, a less enjoyable way, an individualist. Like, I think true individualism is where you're very communal, but you support yourself, and you don't look for you don't demand things of others so much. You're like, hey, I live my life, you live your life, no problem. Um, but Australia is sometimes one of the downfalls of Australia, I think, is like sometimes people, from my perspective anyway, is sometimes people are too kind of in their own world. They drive their car from the house and they don't know their neighbors. They drive down, to work, and then, they see their friends, they go to the park, but it's kind of like, less social and less communal than, say, these more traditional older societies, and, like Ireland or Europe in general or whatever. Um, and or even Asia or Africa, where like people, these more traditional societies. Um, and so, I think a lot of Irish people find that they go to Australia and they're like, oh, I miss like the buzz of the Irish, when you just got like a huge percentage of the people around you are like in that mode of thinking. And that's another thing. Like, I love many countries and cultures, and I love Japanese culture, so awesome, and whatever, like people from where else is really cool? I don't know, like Palestine, you know, uh, Israel also. I love both of those. I think, there's really different culture and very interesting. And um, like, or whatever, Brazil, you know, this cool culture, all over the place. America, um, USA, and but Irish culture is my favorite, you know, and uh, just like my own way of living is my favorite way. I have a twin brother, right? And he's very similar to me. And I could very happily live out the rest of my life as him, living in his way. But I would prefer to be me, and he prefers to be him. And that's just the way it is. Even at this level, we're so similar. We have the same DNA, but a different soul, different souls. But, uh, you know, like, I love my way of being. And then if you expand out a bit, my favorite way is, I resonate with Ireland. I'm Irish, I feel I belong here. Um, and this is my favorite country. Sorry, Australia, I love you. But, um, yeah, and this is why I'm here, because I resonate with this, and then so uh, I think that's a big thing about the on the immigration front, where like it's beautiful to have all these different cultures, but you want to, just like Australians can go to, sorry, Irish people can go to Australia and be like, oh, there's that buzz is missing of having, the vast majority of people being Irish. Ireland, we don't want Ireland to get to a point where that disappears, and even in Ireland, you can't get that. Um, it's like I think, and maybe there's some countries like Australia, which is a melting pot of different cultures, where okay, well, the local people are like, the Aboriginals are like 3% of the population or less now, maybe, and so maybe it's like that ship sailed, and this is just a totally multicultural society now. Um, Maybe with a European kind of basic scaffold there from the British. It was a British colony. But it's like maybe there's parts of the world where it's like, yeah, Canada, Australia, maybe, or whatever, where it's like, yeah, we can just have a combination of whatever. That's fine. Um, but I think there's other parts of the world where it's like, it's a different history. In some countries, like Ireland, we suffered and we resisted, and people made incredible sacrifices, which if you just watch a video on it for 5 minutes or go to Kilmainham jail and just hear a little talk, you're going to get teary, if you have half a heart. And that's like in this situation, it makes much more sense for the ideals of justice and love, that we preserve and we encourage this culture to flourish. And yeah, people can come and we can have other influences, but not to like overwhelm this beautiful culture, which has given so much to the world and which has had so much taken from it already. And this is echoed in other countries as well, like in Europe, I think, especially. And so I think the key thing is, as I'm saying this, I'm mindful sometimes, like, oh, don't sound racist. Don't like. I'm genuinely coming from a place of love, but it's just I know in my heart, in my bones, I've thought it through, and I know intuitively, the whole thing of just swamping Europe with people from all over the place, that's not fair. And it wouldn't be fair if it was the other way around. Like, say, I don't know, South America had had an empire, they'd gone out and conquered Europe and other places. And then there's a bunch of, uh, you know, uh, Europeans emigrating, over to South America, which was all more developed. And then, if it was the reverse, right? Or wherever, it's like, all these Europeans are just swamping like Africa or South America or Asia. That wouldn't be right either. It's like, hey, they have the right to their place and their culture and their ways. And the most beautiful world, the world of love, the future of love, I think is going to come from a balance of going, okay, we've learned a lot from this immigration paradigm, and that's immigration is always going to be a thing to some extent, but it's not this permanent thing that's natural in human civilization. Usually that hasn't been that much because people have a certain culture and people need, it needs a certain stability. And so I think what I see coming ahead is that uh, we address through spiritual awakening all around the world, we get critical masses of people who have the spiritual awareness to gain the intellectual awareness, which includes the political awareness, the knowledge of how the political system should be, ideally. And with these lights of awareness, we transform and we heal our political systems and remove corruption and insanity, to a large extent. And then people won't be coming to Ireland from Nigeria because they're like, well, actually, I'd rather be in Nigeria. Things are great. All the corruption's mostly gone, and it's an amazing life here. And everyone, speaks my language. They live the way I live. My family's very close. I don't want to go to Ireland. I want to stay here. And that's going to happen all around the world. And so that's another reason why Irish people, someone got angry at me when I was like, they're like, are you for Ireland or are you for the world? And I was like, well, I'm for the world, but first of all, I'm for Ireland. But they were like, no, as soon as I said the first part, they got, irate with me and they're shouting me down, and then all their powers were like, all turned on me. And I was like, you need to be aware that you're hurting Ireland by doing that. Because to heal Ireland, we need to be able to resonate with the majority of Irish people, and most Irish people are very keen to do right by others. So you need that balance point. That's why I hope I can, maybe maybe I won't resonate completely with very hardcore people who are just Ireland, forget everyone else. But I can resonate, I hope, with this middle ground who are like, no, we care about other people, but this just doesn't feel right, and we want to take care of Ireland properly. And so my vision is that we take care of Ireland, but in a way where we're trying to encourage the whole world. We have a holistic global vision of other countries should do this too and heal themselves. And then they're not going to be these migration pressures anyway. And also, if there's a dozen odd countries around the world which are like Chile and Argentina, where they're shrinking the government and they're bringing back the power of the individual, so you don't have to pay as much tax to pay for this bloated bureaucracy, half of whom aren't working that hard anyway, or spending money in bad ways by accident or to help their buddies or whatever. Then, if we have a dozen lights of these flourishing um, countries of liberty and awareness, then safety in numbers. It gets much easier for Ireland to fight off the WEF or whatever, or the EU trying to manipulate us, if there are other countries who are also fighting those fights. And so it's definitely in our interest to try to help the awakening of other nations, not just the Gaelic awakening. But, and so this is the balance. Anyway, all right, so that's kind of why I'm not in Australia, mixed in with a bit of like what I'm doing and, my political ambitions here. And spiritual ambitions for this beautiful people, this beautiful island. So, anything else to mention? Um, let's see. I would mention if you go to Australia, if you do, you don't hit, you're like, I see what you're saying, Jamie, but nah, I'm gonna go to Australia. That it feels good for me. God bless you. Go do it. But uh, if you do, sunscreen. I'd be very careful with sunscreen. A lot of sunscreens, what's in them? What are those ingredients? Some people say if you wouldn't eat it, you shouldn't put it on your skin because it goes straight through your skin. It gets into your system, right? Like you put all the white sunscreen on, and then 10 minutes later it's gone. You don't reapply it. It's not like, oh, it's gone from my body. No, it's still there, but where is it? It's not on the surface. It's gone into your skin. Now, a lot of sunscreens are full of things where apparently, I haven't looked into this, in depth, but I've seen people, it seems credible, where they're saying studies have shown cancer and skin problems resulting from sunscreens having kind of all kinds of gunk put in them, things that aren't so good for you. If you look at the list of ingredients, like what are these things? Would you eat it? No. Okay, maybe you shouldn't put it on your skin. But but so anyway, I was just not putting sunscreen on. I was putting jojoba oil and aloe vera when I was going out. Aloe vera gel. It blocks like 50% of radiation apparently. And then when I got home, I would put on jojoba oil, and just to kind of restore my skin. So if you're going to ignore my advice and you're not going to participate in the spiritual and political revolution in Ireland, then at least for God's sake, take care of your skin in Australia. Pasty, beautiful Irish souls. Now, to finish here, I'm going to read you two poems. First one, so they're poems I've written, right? From a forthcoming, at some point, volume of poetry from me called Homecoming to a Foreign Land. And so the first poem is called A Recurring Dream. I see a country through the mists, all wooded green fields and waters clear, stone temples teaching soulfulness, happy homes with their hearths lit, flowers blooming, love's garland, all smiling faces and flowing wit, the words and music urging on each dear soul to sing their song, and sure we'll call her Ireland. Alrighty. Let's see. The other one I'm going to read for you is called Why Aren't You in Australia? But I should probably change the name to Why Amn't I in Australia? Anyway, here we go. I hope this maybe resonates and shares a little bit of my love for this beautiful island home. And yeah, so here we go. Her misty Avalonian ups and downs, green and yellow fields threaded and wound, with woods and rivers and seashore bound, what's not to love of Erin's nature? Her story reeling eons ages back, illuminated with love at so many a point and turn, monks and laymen teaching the ancient world, the renowned island of saints and scholars, only more beautiful for her great suffering, the bitter storms of violent subjugation that have washed away so much worth keeping, yet a foil for her light to shine through in colour, rainbow reflections for smiling through tears, and still the craic flows after all these years. And there's the language, the baffling brogue, quick wit and invention turning English rogue, agus Gaelga, Changa go Holland, or Nanam culture. The Irish tongue not dead, not the Irish tongue not dead but dreaming. And sure, we're social creatures born to connect, like dot to dots bringing the page to life. And what's a good thing without being shared? So I'm fond of friendship, family, and stranger things, all where my soul's colours and yours can mingle. And Éire allows me to be and bloom with others, who are clan, somehow the same but differing. From immigrant isolation, more tribe now than I can name, and I'm learning my place, humbling and healing, dwelling on an island amidst a welcoming world. All in all, fleeting decades could call this home, but this leaf knows it is also the timeless tree. So seeking wisdom, I reach out for my ancestry, and through my roots revive the whole immortality. That's it. Edited a few words there since last writing it, so hence slight jumps in my reading. Anyway, so Garamila Mahaguiv, Ta Sulgam, Gomeamish, Lechela Arish Galua. Hope we're together again soon, and thank you so much. And Erin Gabra. God bless.